Brisbane. How are you guys? So good to see you. I was here last year at this march and I think we've got even more people here today, so thank you so much for coming out. This is a massive year for Queensland. It's a massive year because it's an election year. And so what we do matters. And I'm going to talk to you today about three guys. Their names are Stephen, David and Robbie. All right, we got that? Stephen, David and Robbie. Let's talk about Stephen first, Stephen Miles. What do you think of Stephen Miles, guys? Yeah, I reckon we could double that noise. What do you think about Stephen Miles? And I've got to say to you, I've got a very similar opinion of Stephen. So I've thought about this long and hard. I've done a lot of research, and the way I put it together is he's either really, really dumb or he's a massive liar. And I know they're a big claim to make. That's a massive claim to make. I could get sued for defamation for that, but I'm going to substantiate it now. He's either really dumb or he's a massive liar. And I'm going to tell you about the first time I met him. A couple of months ago, in April, I think it was, I was in that building in your parliament. And I flew here for a press conference because Robbie Katter had the courage to introduce a bill that would protect babies born alive after an abortion. And I was waiting to accompany Robbie at that press conference. I had a group of people with me, including a friend who was filming and getting ready to film that press conference. The press conference started late because they were in the chamber still and Robbie hadn't come out. And as I was standing there waiting, I could see, so it's this balcony. I don't know if you guys know it because it's inside the parliament. There's this square balcony. And I'm on one side waiting for this press conference to happen. And I can see on the other side the chamber and the politicians beginning to exit the chamber. And you know, it's my first time there and I saw Stephen Miles. I saw Stephen Miles walk out of the chamber and my heart just started racing. Because I was like, there's Stephen Miles and I know the truth about Stephen Miles. And in a split second, I turned to my friend and I said, come with me and don't stop filming no matter what you do. And I walked across that balcony. I didn't ask anyone for permission. I didn't tell Robbie what I was doing. In fact, he wasn't even there, I don't think, at that point. And I just walked across that balcony to Stephen Miles where he was standing and he was taking a photo with a fan. And once they'd taken their photo, I walked up to Stephen with a big smile. I think he thought I was another fan. And I said, excuse me, Premier Miles, can I have a chat with you for a minute? And he smiled, you know, that fake politicians, that lying politicians, that fake smile that lying politicians give you. Gave me a smile. He said, of course. And I knew I wouldn't have much time before they booted me out of there. So I said, Premier Miles, when you were health minister in 2018, you introduced a new law that would allow abortion up to birth. And at the time, you told the Parliament there will be no increase in late-term abortions under my new law. Is that something you still stand by, Stephen? And he looked at me awkwardly and he looked at the person filming and I think he started to realise this was not going to be a friendly chat for him. And I just went straight back in and I said, do you still stand by that claim? Because in just 4 short years after you introduced abortion up to birth in Queensland, you said it would not increase, but it has doubled. 152 babies were killed, gestationally viable babies in 2018. Fast forward 4 years under your new law, Premier, and it's 304 babies killed. That number has not just increased, it's doubled. And he looked at me and he said, there's no evidence for that, there's no evidence for that. And he starts running towards the door. What a coward, can't even face up to the truth. And so I started running too, as did the girl that was filming. And I was wearing these shoes, so you know it was harder for me than it was for Stephen. But I chased him and I just said, there is the evidence. Your own Queensland health reports show 152 babies were killed in 2018, 304 in 2021. What do you have to say? He's like, there's no evidence, and he shoots through that door. At which point I can't chase him, but he calls his henchmen, who call the parliamentary whip, who then comes and finds me and tells me I broke a rule. I mean, what a joke. I'm in the people's house and we pay his salary and I want to ask him a question He doesn't even know the data, or he's lying to cover it up. Shame on Stephen Miles. And the next time I encounter Stephen Miles and his office is about a month and a half later, and I'm back in Brisbane, and this time I'm going to Stephen Miles' electorate. And on my Instagram and Facebook, I'd reached out to everybody and I said, come and join me because we're going to letterbox Stephen Miles' electorate so that everybody knows what he's done. And so a whole bunch of women came to help me out, and we had a flyer and we explained, it's got the screenshots, it shows how the numbers are doubled. And before we letterbox his electorate, I go up to his office, to the parliamentary office that he has. And I walk in and I speak to the lady at the desk, the staffer, and I say to her, excuse me, my name is Joanna Howe, and I've just got a leaflet to give to your boss about how the late-term abortions have doubled since he was health minister. And she said, oh, that's a lie, that's not true, you know. So similar thing to what her boss says. And then I say, it is true. Look, I've printed out a leaflet actually so that you can see the screenshots from the health reports. And she's like, if you don't leave, I'm going to call the police. Now, look at me, guys. Do I look threatening to you? What do you reckon? I'm like 5 foot. I barely make 5 foot. And I'm scared of mice and cockroaches. I mean, to be fair, she wouldn't have known that. But, you know, I wasn't raising my voice. I'm a little lady, and I was in there for a grand total of 6 minutes. But guess what she does? She rings a special hotline and she calls the police. I'd already left by that point and I was letterboxing with the ladies in his electorate. But what we see is 2 police cars with sirens blazing, racing down the street for little old me. Like, that is a total abuse of power, right? Like, these people will go to any lengths to cover up their shameful conduct. If you want to see what happened next when the police came, you'll have to look on my Facebook and Instagram at Dr. Joanna Howe and check it out. Follow me, find out what happened there, because I had a great chat with the 2 cops. I reckon they're not voting for Stephen Miles for the next election, let's just put it that way. So that's Stephen. You can tell I don't think very much of him, and I'd probably give him a 1 out of 10, if that. But let's talk about David. David's a bit more complex, isn't he? Because he's from the Liberals, and we traditionally think of the Liberals as a party that stands up for human rights in utero. But I've got to tell you about David. You know, he's from the Liberals, he's the leader of the Liberals, David Crisafulli, and there are some great Liberals, people like Amanda Stoker and Mark Robinson, amazing people. Amanda Stoker and Mark Robinson, courageous politicians. But David, he's not one of them. I'm going to be honest with you, and no one pays me to say the stuff that I say, and I'm just going to tell you straight. David is not one of them, okay? He might vote the right way if forced to, kicking and screaming because there's a pro-life bill on the floor of the parliament and he then votes the right way. But he is not going to courageously introduce laws that protect the human rights of children in utero. David Crisafulli is just not going to do that. In fact, when asked by a reporter, what are you going to do are you going to do anything about abortion over the next 4 years? He said, abortion is off the table, I'm not going to do anything. Now that is not good enough for me. Queensland is the abortion capital of Australia. I expect more of David Crisafulli. Do you expect more? It's not good enough. Stephen is terrible. David is like marginally better. Because if forced to, kicking and screaming on the floor of the parliament because somebody else has the guts to introduce a pro-life bill, he might just vote the right way. But he's not going to be the man who stands in the parliament and protects the children in utero and fights for their mums. David's just not that guy. So we need to do better. We need to vote and bring in better people. So the third guy I want to talk to you about is Robbie. What do we think about Robbie Katter, guys? Now, Robbie's people, the way this all happened, Robbie's people reached out to me a couple of months ago, early last year, and they said that Robbie was interested in doing something on the abortion issue. And you know, I've put my life on the line for this, my career, and daily I am getting threats I'm getting harassed, I'm getting bullied. And so I didn't want to just join up to any politician without vetting him first. So I put Robbie through a grilling. Isn't that right, Robbie? We spoke on Zoom, and for about an hour I grilled him because I wanted to know that he was a man of integrity and he wasn't just doing it to buy votes. And I'll let you know Robbie survived the grilling. So I asked him questions and I could see that he genuinely cared. He didn't want to look like he was doing something. He genuinely cared about children in utero and protecting them, and he cared about their mums. And so now Robbie has introduced this new bill that would treat babies born alive in Queensland no different to any other baby. And this is a really important issue. I just spoke to a midwife today. I interviewed her. I'm going to have to put that on my YouTube and cover her identity because I can't imagine how they would come for her if they knew who she was. But, she blew the lid on what we know is happening. In Queensland, babies are born alive after an abortion. If they receive care, if anybody picks them up, that's the midwives and nurses who are doing it. They don't have those rights under the law. They can be left on a dirty pan dish in the slot room. They don't get that care. The legislative right to care is not there, which is why we need Robbie's bill to pass. And so my message to you is this. Come October, we have an election. And if you have a Katter Party MP in your seat, you need to put Katter number 1 because a Katter Party MP is pre-selected on being pro-life. So you could be in the Liberal Party or the Labor Party and you might be pro-life, like Mark Robertson is, and I applaud him, like Amanda is. But not everybody in their party isn't. Tim Nichols is a disgusting Liberal MP who supports abortion. We have to get Tim Nichols out. And then in Labor, you've got all these pro-abortion loving MPs. But if you vote for the Katter Party, you will get a bill, you will get a party, you will get a person that will bring in pro-life bills, and that's what we need. Now, if you don't have a Katter Party MP in your seat, come October, you need to look at the How to Vote cards that Cherish Life and ACL will produce because they will tell you who is the most anti-abortion politician in your seat. And it might be a Labor person, it might be a Liberal person, it might be a One Nation person. But you need to vote for the person, not the party, unless it's the Katter Party, because they're the only pro-life party that is proactively bringing bills in this state. All right. I'm sorry to get so bossy. I'm sorry to get so bossy, guys, but I feel like we've just got to get this right because Robbie has introduced the first state-based pro-life bill in nearly a decade, which is why we have to get behind this party and reward them at the ballot box.